welcome into the 615 Sessions podcast on this Wednesday afternoon. Hope everybody's having a great day so far. If you're a Titans fan, you're excited because you have a little more news on the NFL schedule officially being released earlier today, or at least a portion of it for Titans fans who are curious about who their team might be facing in London in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk about that today and how it really felt like a slight for Titans fans, what happened with the schedule and with the London game specifically. Happy to have you guys in for another episode of the podcast. Of course, we're made possible by Relax the Back, Nashville, and Two Rivers Ford. We're coming to you live from the Superbook Sports Studios. Download the Superbook app today and cash in with promo code ATOZ. So, with everything that's going on, the full schedule will be released Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. So, we'll do a primetime show immediately after. We'll do a schedule release show immediately after the NFL schedule in its entirety comes out. That's 272 total games. But in the meantime, we have one Titans game to work off of, and that was announced earlier today. Before we get started, for those of you guys who are live streaming with us, if you'd share the broadcast around. If you're on Facebook, you can do that in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, like Karen O'Keefe. Share now to public. Bottom left, like I said. If you're on YouTube or Twitch, like the video, subscribe to the channel for all the great A to Z Sports live streaming content and podcasts like we have on the podcast network. And of course, if you're on YouTube or Twitch, subscribe, like the video, tell a friend to do the same if you've done both of those things. So with that being said, wish they would play all of the home games in Europe, says Rushwood Park of the Tennessee Titans. That'll just be the one. They're not the Jaguars quite yet, although the Jags are an interesting kind of wrinkle in all of this, right? They're playing two games in London back to back. They are two of the teams, or in two of the three games that will be played specifically in London this coming season. Now, the Titans, their opponent is the Baltimore Ravens. And that's something for a lot of people that I think they were disappointed by. There's a couple of reasons for that, right? And I think that when you look at all the different things that have come to pass that we're going to go through here in just a second, and what the Tennessee Titans are as a fan base, as a franchise, and in terms of brand equity, with the new rules that we're going to talk about today around the television rights, it's going to make a lot more sense to you. Now, to be curious to see, because the full schedule will come out after this podcast, be curious to see how many nationally televised games that they ultimately end up having. Alan Rogers says the NFL is trying to take Christmas Day from the NBA. Thoughts on the primetime games? Well, we'll get to that, Alan, and I don't think they are trying to. I think they've already done it, and it's only been 2 years of them playing games on Christmas. I think the NFL owns whatever day it wants to. They're going to play games on Black Friday for the first time this year. They're just going to put as much football in as many places as humanly possible, because that's the thing that people can't get enough of. I want you to hear this clip from Tom Pelissero, though. He's on the Pat McAfee show. For those of you who enjoy what Pat does, Tom and Ian Rappaport are regular guests, I think, on the Pat McAfee show. And Tom, I thought, did a really, really good job describing what it is that NFL teams look for when the schedules are initially put out.
On the same kind of note as the schedule coming out, what do teams think about the difficulty of schedule? Because right now, they're ranking every single team and where they fall. I think the Patriots are, here's the list. The Patriots are towards the top. I know the Steelers are towards the bottom.
Hell yeah.
Do teams actually take this into any account, or is this just something where, us as fans are just looking at it from the outside, trying to figure out like, oh, okay, if we have the third hardest schedule, maybe we'll end up, 9-8. Is that real for these teams or no?
The strength of the schedule is real, but it's also dictated by how you finished the year before. Now there's some luck involved in that too, because the Chiefs, I think, are 16th in strength of schedule just because of the division that they happen to be playing against, what happened to a couple teams in their division last year. So you can argue that maybe that's actually going to end up stronger. What teams look for on the day that the schedule comes out, and there's always some grumbling about it, it's going to be who are they playing in week one? When do they have back-to-back or back-to-back-to-back type of road trips? And then how many uneven types of weeks do they have? Like how many times do they play a Monday and then a Sunday? How many times do they play a Sunday followed by a Thursday.
Ooh.
And every year there's a couple of teams that like don't have consecutive home games until December. And the bye is the other thing. Some teams last year, there were a couple of teams that had like a week 14 bye, which no one had ever had before. For some teams, like for the Packers, it probably came at a really good time for them, at a time that they were playing better football. They just needed to get healthy. And then there's other teams who I think the Colts also had the week 14 bye. And at that point, they're just limping toward the end. And probably the last thing anybody wants to do is go away for a week and then have to come back to it for a month. But those are the teams really analyzed here, and that all their operations people and their logistics people are trying to figure out, in terms of those long road trips, especially for the West Coast teams going east or vice versa. How do you do those? Are you staying in the city for a while? Those are the things that are really impactful once the actual schedule comes out.
So that is Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network in an appearance on the Pat McAfee Show. And that's the thing that NFL teams care about. Now, for you, as a Titans fan, what do you care about? You want to know how many times, if you're out of market, for example, if you don't live in Nashville, Tennessee, you want to know how many times you're going to see your team on television, right? Because you're not guaranteed, unless you're paying for things like Sunday Ticket, you're not guaranteed to see your team on out-of-market games, or in an out-of-market situation. The Titans are not going to be something that's frequent, right? Detroit is another one of these. I think that with Tampa Bay without Tom Brady will become this again. They certainly were with Jameis. There's so many different things that fans want to know about the schedule and that impact the ability for them to enjoy their football team in as many ways as they want to enjoy their football team. The question that I'd have for you, if you guys are live streaming with us today, and obviously if you're listening to this podcast on your drive around or in your commute home or whatever the case may be, your commute to work on Thursday morning, thinking about the schedule before it comes out later today, what were you most looking to get out of this Titans schedule? Now, my answer is obviously different than yours, right? Because mine's very much based off work. That is not your experience. You guys are looking to see which home games you can go to, which road games you might consider attending. The London game, obviously, what we're getting ready to talk about, is going to be something that's factored into a lot of people's decision-making, and it's a huge budget circumstance to try and figure out, no matter where you're going to these games, whether that's internationally or domestically. I want to explain more about why I don't think the Titans are going to have many nationally broadcast games here in just a second, right after I remind you that the 615 Sessions podcast is made possible by the great folks at Two Rivers Ford. Go to Two Rivers Ford for the best quality American-made Ford vehicles, the best in award-winning customer service, and the best in a non-commissioned sales staff that does not put pressure on you throughout the course of the car buying experience. It's a business that's been operating locally owned in Middle Tennessee for 40 years. It's their 40th anniversary at Two Rivers Ford. And they have gotten to be that age and operated that long in this community because they do business with honesty and integrity, a name you know and a brand you can trust. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. So some of you guys are asking about the bye week. Well, the bye week is going to be week 7. I can almost guarantee that at this point, because the Titans will play Baltimore in week 6. That's the schedule release nugget that we have to work off so far. The Titans and the Ravens, arguably the best home game on the schedule if you're a Titans fan, that just got shipped to London. So now I think when you're looking at this at this point, and you're trying to consider, okay, a variety of different things, not just for the competitiveness of the football team, because that's obviously a consideration, but are you somebody who's going to be able to attend Titans games? Are you somebody who's going to want to go to this London game? They've certainly made it a better selling point because they've taken the best game that would have been at Nissan Stadium this coming season, the game that Titans fans care the most about, right? Would you not argue that the Ravens, the hatred of that particular franchise, is something that can unite original Titans fans from who first became fans of the team 20 years ago and who remember the first iterations of that rivalry with Eddie George and Ray Lewis and Steve McNair and the battles back and forth between Baltimore and Tennessee, not just in the AFC Central, but in the postseason as well, but also in recent history, because the Titans have played the Ravens quite a few times at this stage. Lamar Jackson and the Titans have gone back and forth in several different circumstances in the postseason and in the regular season. They've had varying degrees of success against one another. The games have always been competitive, And certainly you can tell how much one club enjoys sticking it to the other. Whether that's John Harbaugh and Malcolm Butler getting into it, whether that's Ravens players getting butthurt about dancing on the logo, whether that's, the Titans knocking Baltimore out of the AFC playoffs as the number one overall seed, right? Remember how shocked you were when Cincinnati did it to you? Well, the Titans did it to Baltimore not that long ago. And you know who hasn't forgotten? The Ravens and their fans. So it's a compelling matchup. It's going to get more people to, I think, tune in to a game that they otherwise might not be interested in. It's going to get more people to travel to a game that I think most Titans fans would have been totally willing to do locally, but to go to London for this game, you got to really, really love it, on top of the demand that they expect to have internationally. Bengals at home, a bigger game than the Ravens, says S-Champ 21. I don't think so. I think that's recency bias. Like, sure, you'd like to beat Cincinnati, but who are the Bengals really to you? Like, that's just something that's happened. I mean, Joe Burrow, his rookie year was 2020. That was the first loss that they took to Joe Burrow and the Bengals. But it's not like there were any great Bengals-Titans. I mean, there have been great Bengals-Titans games before, but there weren't any recent or historically great Bengals-Titans matchups that come to mind when you think about those teams playing, right? Ravens and Titans is different. It's almost like Titans and Colts. Although that has become much more of a rivalry in recent years because the Colts, for the longest time owned the Titans very, very well. So maybe Titans and Jags is a better comparison. But the Titans have had the better result in that particular rivalry, even though last year the Titans were not able to handle the Jags quite as well. So I think that when you look at, the Bengals would be a good team to beat. Certainly they figure to be competitive. They certainly figure to be a team that should be contending for the Super Bowl this year with Joe Burrow at quarterback and in a contract year. That'll be interesting. I just think that the Ravens is a bigger rivalry, and it means more to the largest amount of Titans fans. Now, I think people are going to travel for this game. I think people are going to tune in for this game. I also think it's probably the only nationally broadcast game that they end up having. I don't think they're going to be on Sunday Night Football this year. Thursday Night Football maybe, because it's Amazon Prime as opposed to network television, and they're not judged by the same ratings metrics. But I do think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with the new schedule rules that are in place, the new broadcast rules that are in place. We're going to go through those here in just a second, right after I remind you that the 615 Sessions podcast is made possible by the great folks at Relax the Back Nashville. If you haven't been into their store in Green Hills, I cannot recommend the experience for you enough. Relax the Back taught me so many different things. Glenn, in particular, who runs that shop, taught me so many different things about how I can work better, live better, and feel better every day just based on what kind of chair I'm sitting in. The standing desk solution that they were able to provide for me. Even things about my mattress, my current one, that I had not considered that would be able to improve my sleep, which will benefit so many other things in my life. They've truly helped me with a few tweaks to what it is that I was doing, what my workspace looks like in particular, and they can help you too. Hashtag we got your back, Nashville is their slug line, and that is the words. Those are the words that they live by and operate by. They will make sure to walk you through the process and make sure that you have a full understanding about not just the products that they offer, but the different ways that they can help you. They're zero gravity. I don't know if it's a zero gravity chair specifically, but the lounger that they had in there totally changed the way that I had thought about lounge chairs or recliners in my life. And now I'm vastly considering the kind of furniture that I'm going to put into my living room when I go about replacing my living room furniture here in a couple of weeks. RelaxTheBackNashville.com is where you go, or their lovely storefront in Green Hills. So is there A to Z Sports merch, says Alan Rogers? We did have merch. I don't know if the merch, what they're doing with the merch store at this stage. That's a question for Austin and Zach. That is above my pay grade. I know I have a bunch of A to Z t-shirts that I love, especially like the comfortable, like graphic tees. I love those. They're the best. So maybe inquire with Austin and Zach about the merch situation. With the merch situation with the guys in the morning. So Mike Conley says he's got an A to Z hat. All right, interesting. So the schedule situation and the way that the schedule rules have changed, that is the biggest reason that I think the Titans are in a unique spot here. Not just because of who they are and the size of the fan base, I do think that matters, but because of the way that networks are now going to be allowed to cherry pick games. Now, here's the full international schedule, right? So week 4, you've got the Falcons and the Jags. The Jags are staying over there in weeks 4 and 5 because they're going to be the home team against the Falcons, but then they'll be the road team when the Bills play them at Tottenham. Ravens and Titans will also be at Tottenham. Dolphins and Chiefs and Colts and Patriots. Both of those games will be played in Frankfurt, Germany. So those are the 5 international games at this point. Now, we know those, and we'll have the full schedule by tomorrow night, and we'll break that down in its entirety on the primetime show immediately after the fact. But these are the new rules about television networks and the specific games that I want you guys to keep in mind when you think about this stuff. So what the NFL is basically allowed for is for individual games to be free agents in the network television marketplace. What that allows for is no longer are you going to have to watch NFC games on Fox or have to watch AFC games on CBS. Monday Night Football will be able to select better games from a potential inventory, and they will go through all these different things in a way that best benefits their television partners. The Black Friday game is something that's new. That'll be Jets and Dolphins later in the year. And what it also allows for is that teams are not guaranteed to be on primetime games, nor do teams, or rather, teams can only be on Thursday Night Football twice, but they can be on Thursday Night Football as many as 2 times. And not all teams are guaranteed to get a primetime spot this year. So I think that the nationally televised broadcast is probably going to be the London game. I think the Titans are a franchise in particular that they're speaking to, a fan base that they're speaking to say, well, you're not guaranteed a primetime slot, but here's the London game against the Ravens for those of you who are wanting to watch the Titans on a nationally televised situation. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what the league thinks of the Titans based on how they construct the schedule this year. That's not a guarantee that it'll look the same by the time we get to the end of it, because flexing is still possible. But I know that Titans fans are going to be dissatisfied with the amount of times that they're able to watch their favorite team outside of a local television broadcast. I know nationally televised broadcasts are not the most valuable things, but it does matter if you're trying to grow a fan base. And the Titans, who have had momentum in the last couple of years, they look to be in a bit of a reset situation. How the league views them, I think, is going to tell us a lot about how they project and, frankly, how the league adapts to things like, that may arise in the 2023 season, like Will Levis, for example. If there's a point where he emerges as a legitimate option to start for the Titans, whether that be for injury or otherwise in 2023, I think that will motivate places to be a little more interested in this particular local professional football team. It's going to do it for us today on the 615 Sessions podcast. Primetime tonight. We'll be talking more about the international matchups. The Titans and the Ravens are one, but we'll take a look at all 5 and see how they factor in to this year's NFL slate. It'll be a great conversation. We look forward to having you. Thank you guys, as always, for hanging out, and I will talk to you tonight on the Primetime Show.